So, hello and welcome again to another live broadcast. This is number 3. So, if you haven't watched any of the others, I will just go into the plan for today so you have an idea of what the broadcast is going to include, because I usually go over the structure for the broadcast. So, firstly, I'm Oliver J.R. Cooper, an author, writer, teacher, and consultant. And I've been writing for nearly 10 years now. And I've written 22 books. My latest book is just in the background here, which is on the fear of abandonment and how to heal your fear of abandonment. And the cover went through many different changes, and I must say I'm very pleased with the cover, the final cover, just to give you a clearer idea. You can see here. I think the designer did a very good job, so I'm very pleased with that. So firstly, I'd like to start off with something that I learned about maybe a few months ago. And what I heard was that when we experience anger for 5 minutes, it ends up suppressing our immune system for up to 6 hours. And when we experience love for 6 minutes, it ends up enhancing our immune system for 6 hours. So I think that with what is going on, each of us, we want to have a good immune system. And of course, there is what we can eat, and getting good sleep, plenty of rest can help with that. But of course, from this, what I've just said, being mindful of how we feel and making sure that we don't get too caught up in negativity, in drama, because like with the media, they're often there to inform us, apparently, but a lot of the time it's negative and it's completely no good, no use for us. So I think that's a very, very important bit of information. So what I wanted to start off with today, because I'm going to speak about self-sabotage, I'm going to talk about the inner child, and maybe a few other things, but what I wanted to start off with is self-sabotage. And of course, when it comes to self-sabotage, there is how we can hold ourselves back from achieving something in particular. And there is a general self-sabotage. So I said it's not going to relate to being unable to achieve something in particular. It's just going to relate to a general sabotage. So it can relate to someone holding themselves back in every area. So no matter what it is, they can end up holding themselves back. And of course, if this is the case, I mean, one way to look at it, to use an analogy, would be for someone to be in a car and they can't get the car to move. So is there not that they make progress and they get almost to where they want to be? So they're going to, let's say, they're inland and they want to get to the beach, and they can't even go a mile. Can't even get that far. and that is then going to be different to being able to get very close to the beach, but the car breaking down just before. It could be 5 miles, 10 miles away, because when someone does excuse me, when someone does have one area where they hold themselves back, they can get very close to where they want to be, and then just as they get there, something can happen, or perhaps they could achieve something, but then before long they end up basically getting rid of it, ruining it in some way. So the first thing I've got, I'm looking at a general form of self-sabotage, is sleep. So when someone gets up late, and this can be a pattern, they can continually get up late, and so they don't have time to do what they need to do. And another part of this can be going to bed too late, so they can't wake up, and because they're not getting enough sleep, they're going to be low on energy. It can be hard for them to concentrate, and their memory cannot be very good because they are not getting enough sleep. And as been said, we need about 8 hours of sleep every night. And but before I go into the next point, for everyone on the other side, it would be good to hear where in the world you are from, if it is the morning there, the evening, or the afternoon, because I know that lots of people who get in touch with me and who follow my work all over the world. So it'd be good to find out whereabouts you are from. So please feel free to let me know. I think my sore throat has got to be due to the change in temperature in the UK. It's got a bit cold here now. I'm not a big fan of that. So, but I think it's only going to get colder in the UK now, but it's been quite a long summer, so can't complain. But back to what I was saying. So at least 8 hours is recommended, and for a deeper sleep, magnesium is very helpful for that. Magnesium glycinate is very good for that, for better dreams too. And another important part is when it comes to food. So someone, again, they could eat food that's not very good for them, or they might not eat when they should, when they need energy. So again, they're not going to have energy, they're not going to be taking in the nutrients that they need to be running at their best. It'll be like a Formula One car that's, instead of being given the right fuel, they're ending up pouring beer into the Formula One car. So it's not going to be the best thing, and the car might not even run. So they're not going to be getting what they need to be running at their best. And as they say, the body is a temple, and so it needs to be respected and treated with the utmost respect. And the next thing I've got here is commitment. And so there can be the tendency not to commit or to give up before long. And of course, there has to be a certain level of commitment in order to move forward. This is something that I wrote about this week, about commitment. And of course, there can be a trauma aspect element to it as well. And to find out more, you can check out transformationalwriting.co.uk to read up on that article. But with that aside, there can be an inability to commit. And then, of course, someone can be just up with the car. It's like they're standing still, so they're not moving forward, and that can cause someone to feel down and depressed and powerless. So commitment is another symptom of the self-sabotage. And the next thing I've got is time. So time management. So instead of spending time with, I've missed a point there, but I'll go back to that. So instead of spending time doing the things that matter, we can end up doing other things. So they're not really important. So instead of doing whatever it is, instead of studying for something or working on something that needs to be done, we can, watch some TV or something like that. And then that can be another distraction. And of course, as I say, our greatest asset is our time. Because we can't get that back. We can get money back, of course, but we can't get time. We can't go back in time yet. Perhaps there's people out there that can do that. Who knows? But that's for another broadcast. So back to what I was saying with friends. The point I missed was that when it comes down to the people in our life, so we can spend time with people who can't really be there for us. They can't support us. And because of that, through spending time with people who are not our cheerleaders, as they say, something that I heard about in a book, an American book. I think it's more common to say that in America to have basically people who have got our back, so our cheerleaders. But in England, just someone who's got our back, someone who can be there, and it doesn't mean they're basically blowing smoke up our behind, as they say. So that doesn't mean they're just always nice and they're not honest with us. But of course, if we are spending time with people who can support us and who can support us in our dreams and our reality, because our reality is not always how we want it to be, and it's not always an expression of who we are. It can be an expression of our past, of our limiting beliefs, of our conditioning, of our trauma. So we want really people who can support us in our dreams, people that can see that we are perhaps more than our limitations. So people like that is obviously the ideal. And of course, if we can't find people like that around us, and obviously with all the stuff that's going on, it can be harder to connect with people in the real world. But we can find people like that online who can support our dreams and are not going to validate our reality. So again, back to the main point, not spending time with people who can support us can be another way that we can hold ourselves back. And another point I've got here is to do with resilience. And I touched upon this just now. So when we have a setback again, there can be the need just to give up. And like Rocky, he just kept getting back up and got back up again and again and again. If we don't do this, then this can be another way for us to hold ourselves back. And so instead of being resilient and keeping going, there can be the tendency just to give up. So as soon as there's a challenge, all right, giving up now. And another thing I've got here is preparation. So turning up late, not putting in the groundwork. So for example, someone could have an exam and they don't prepare, so they turn up and then they're not too sure what the answers are, then they can not get the marks that they need and they can fail. And this can cause someone to feel very down and even like a victim. But again, if they, perhaps not consciously, but they haven't been doing what they need to do, then again, self-sabotage there because they haven't prepared for it. And if they did, they could probably just easily pass. And another thing I've got here is goals. So someone can lay down all their goals, but instead of taking the first step and committing, they can just not take that first step. So they could go to a course or a workshop and they can write everything down and get it all very clear, and they come back and then they can just put the goals in their drawer. Certainly relate to that myself. I was on a course once and I wrote a few things down, and I looked and I opened the drawer and they were there, but I didn't completely turn my back on them. But it certainly took me a while to fulfill some of the goals there. And of course there can be a certain timing as well. So it's not always a case of sabotaging ourselves. It might just be a case of, well, now is not the time. So it's always important for us to listen to ourselves, to our own intuition, because as they say, when it comes to our intuition, this can relate to something new and different. So to go along with our intuition can be uncomfortable. When it comes to what we fear, going along with that can be comfortable because it's familiar. So following our intuition is not always something that's going to feel comfortable because it's different. And of course, to our ego mind, what is familiar is safe. So it doesn't matter if it holds our back, if it's kind of killing us, because as long as it's familiar, that part of us will be okay. So with that said, a number of the effects of self-sabotage, and of course there's many more, many more. One reason why someone can hold themselves back is because of self-worth, lack of self-worth. So they could be in a position where they simply haven't developed a sense of a felt sense, they say, of self-worth. So they won't be able to feel as though they are worthy in their body. It just won't be there. And because of that, they won't believe they deserve to have what they desire. And recently I've been writing a new how-to guide about how to develop self-love and self-worth. So I've been very much focused on getting down all the things that from my experience of developing self-worth and self-love myself, and assisting others, and that's all gone into the book. I'm very pleased with this book. But on the other side, so self-worth is a big thing, because if that isn't in place, then it can be normal then to just not bother, or to get to a certain level and then to give up. I mean, the big part of this is this whole what's the term, when someone feels as though they're I think I've got it here, they don't feel as though, that's the whole imposter syndrome. So when someone can achieve something, they get a promotion, or they achieve something big, perhaps a lot of people become aware of it and they can feel like an imposter. So they will have done all the work and they will have earned it and they will have deserved to achieve it. But through having this so-called imposter syndrome, they can believe that it's as if someone just gave them an award or they achieved something, but they didn't really deserve it. They didn't really earn it. It'd be like someone who is in the audience and they get given this big award for achievement, and it's almost like, what's this got to do with me? I just turned up at this event randomly and I'm being given this award. How could this be relevant to me? So this is a big thing that can affect a lot of people, this imposter syndrome. And this can show that although part of them can be on board, they can see what they've done and they can believe they deserve it. Another part of them, a big part of them, can feel as though they don't deserve it. And it could be what can take place is that their adult self can believe they deserve it, and their child self can believe that they don't deserve it. And through having this imposter syndrome, not only can it be hard for them to really accept the experience, they can end up sabotaging it, so they soon go back to the level that they feel comfortable with. And the next thing, which is even deeper than the self-worth, is a sense of safety and security. So if someone doesn't feel safe enough to achieve something, it doesn't matter if they feel like they deserve it, because it will be as though their survival is at risk. So if having something, if a deeper level, if having something is seen as a threat to their survival, then it's not going to happen, or it will soon be destroyed. So self-worth and a sense of safety and security are key parts of this. And that, like with any issue, there can be many layers of working through the layers and layers, so it gradually becomes more comfortable to experience good things. So that's normal. Of course, there can be gratitude there, so I'm grateful I achieved this, but at the same time as well, there can be, I deserve this, I've earned this, I've worked for this. And a big part of this can be, I deserve to be on the planet, so I deserve this because I'm here. And this book that I've put together about self-love and self-worth is can be seen as the antidote to this self-sabotage. So hopefully I'll get it out soon. Maybe the original plan was to get it out for my birthday, which is on Monday. So that was the original plan, but that's not going to happen. So maybe at the end of the year, maybe before, but it's an important book and I'm very proud of the book. So, with that out of the way, now I wanted to talk about another how-to guide that I put together. The first one I released, which is how to heal your inner child. And now I have 2 books on the inner child and 1 course. Oh, and actually I forgot to note this, an audio book as well. And the first book that I put together and the audio book is mainly looking at the symptoms of having an inner child that's in pain. And the audio book is the audio version, of course, of that course. And I do give solutions as well. And as time went by, I thought, okay, let's do a how-to guide, because I feel as though I've got more to give. And the how-to guide went into how to, of course, heal the inner child. And that is can be seen as a lifelong process. It's not something that's going to take place in a weekend, unfortunately. Although there was a time when I thought I could heal myself in a weekend or a couple of weeks based on what I was being told, and my own desperation was because, of course, when we are in a bad way, we're often desperate, and it's easy for us to be deceived because we're in a very desperate place. But of course, we live and we learn. So the course that I put together after that was the last thing I put together on the inner child. It's not a straight conversion of the how-to guide. It's different. There's a lot of similarities, but it is slightly different content in there, and that is on Udemy. So if you're interested in my books about that, that's on Amazon, and the course is on Udemy, and that's doing very well. I've got two positive reviews on Udemy in regards to the inner child course, so that's doing very well. And it's not a long course. It's not a course that goes on for hours and hours, but I've put everything in there, and the main points are there, and I'm very pleased with the course. So, and just to say, when it comes to the inner child, it would be easy to see the inner child as just being one inner child. But in my experience and the experience of the people that I've spoken to and worked to, they can see that we have many different inner children within us. And if someone thinks the inner child is a load of rubbish and it's a bit airy-fairy, that's fair enough. But for them, they can see the inner child, and they can just see it as different split-off parts. And whether it relates to the inner child or different split-off parts, these parts basically, it's about integration. So integrating these split-off parts so that someone can become more whole and complete. Because when there is these split-off parts, then of course we are weakened, and we are not in a place of, we don't feel whole, complete. And a lot of our energy is then used to keep the pain of these split-off parts at bay. So we are weakened. We have less energy to create, and so much energy is used to keep our pain at bay. And to live our best life, as they say, we need to have as much energy as we can to be at our best, to be running in the best way. So this is about basically integrating the split-off parts. And as I say in the material that I put together, when it comes to the inner child, it's not about fixing or repairing or rescuing, because a lot of when it comes to like a CBT or something like that, a lot of the time it's about playing around with what's going on in the mind. So it's the top-down approach, changing what's going on up here to try to change what's going on down below, and that's can be about control and the willpower and the mind, a very masculine approach. And when it comes to the inner child and integrating these parts, it's primarily about presence. So being in our heart and being there as much as we can with the part of us that is not in a good way. So it's then about surrendering. So being in our feminine, because whether someone is a male or a female or anything else these days, they both have a masculine and a feminine element within them. And in the world today, it's very masculine. The feminine is often overlooked. So it can be seen as weaker and playing no part. But although the masculine is important for us to break through our defenses and to, when it comes to being courageous and doing this work, the feminine aspect is just as important, because when we are being with the part of us that wants to be heard and acknowledged, is all about the feminine, surrender, being, not doing. And so during this time when we are in a place of surrender and are showing up for our inner child, we are simply being there and showing this part of us the love the compassion that it needs, perhaps the love and compassion that it has never received before. And this can be a time when we can feel the need to cry and to grieve our unmet childhood needs. So our adult self can then be crying out the pain of our inner child. So this can be seen as conscious crying, and there is no need during this time for us to change or to fix. It's just about allowing what is within us to come out. And in the beginning, it can be too hard for us to do this, which is why I always suggest in my how-to guides in the beginning to reach out for external support, because through working with someone else and building up our own presence, or should I say I've gone one step too far there, through being in the presence of someone else, we can start to develop our own presence. Our system will get stronger, and then we can be there for ourselves. Because no one is their own island. We all need external support. And there's things that we can do by ourselves. There's things we can't. There can be moments in our life when we can be there and moments when we can't. So there is a time and a place for external support. Even though this is a how-to guide, I do say that we can't do everything by ourselves. And so with this how-to guide, I go into the inner child. I talk about the inner child and to give you an understanding of that, a greater understanding. I then go into how you can get in touch with your inner child. And this can take time because it's about building a bond with that part of us, because if this part of us was, or should I say, if as a child we were not treated very well, then this part of us can find it hard to trust. And it can then take time to develop a connection with our inner child. And after this, I go into how to work through this pain. And sometimes if someone is very shut down, I know for myself, I wasn't able to just get in there and cry straight away. I had to work with lots of people to build up my own presence. Because to me, crying in the beginning, I thought it would wipe me out. So I had to work with lots of different people to build up my presence and to work through layers of trauma to relax my own body so I could relax into my feelings. So it can be necessary to work through trauma and for us to basically thaw out, to loosen up. Because these defenses can be annoying and in terms of moving forward, they are there simply to protect us. So they're not bad. They were, well, as they say, they were adaptive and now they are maladaptive. So they had a time and a place, but now they're not serving us. But it can take a while for our system to accept this. And I talk about other things as well, other important elements when it comes to inner child work. I then go into what can happen as we start to heal our inner child and how our life can change, because when it comes to our inner child, it can have an effect on so many things: how we feel, our thoughts, the beliefs we have, our relationships. It can have an effect on what we desire. So the kinds of things that excuse me, the kind of things that we think we want can be an expression of our inner child and have nothing to do with our adult self. So although we can think, yeah, I want that, deep down we might not. So it can be a way to take us down the garden path. So as we become more integrated, then we can, of course, connect more to our essence, more to our true self, and then our life can be more in alignment with who we are and less in alignment with our wounded inner child desires, which is really things that it wanted from its parents that couldn't get. And a lot of our needs then will have to be grieved because they can't be met, not in a functional way. And I end the how-to guide with words of support. So how you can keep going and to hang in there, as there will be bumps along the way, but it's definitely worth it in the long run. So that is that. And again, anyone on the other side, if you'd share your thoughts, are you enjoying the broadcast so far? Let me know where you're from, and if there's anything you'd like me to touch upon, and let me know your thoughts so far. It'd be good to get some feedback here. And here we go. Hello there. Are you enjoying the broadcast? Whereabouts are you from in the world? Be good to hear. Is it warm where you are? Because it's certainly not very warm here. So, and when it comes to the inner child, I think this is not very far. When it comes to the inner child, this is something that I think I first heard about from the someone else from the UK. Good. So this is something that I first heard about from the late John Bradshaw. Perhaps everyone on the other side have heard from him as well. He did a number of books. I think he passed on in 2018. A big loss. Certainly had a big effect on my life. And he did Family Secrets. He did Homecoming. What else has he done? A few other books. I can't remember now, but very good. I think John Bradshaw was a Gemini. And there's been other people over the years who've spoken about the inner child. And I think more and more people now are becoming more aware of it and are understanding that although it may sound a bit airy-fairy, there is actually something to the inner child. So it's about having an open mind in another way when it comes down to the inner child, because, as I said, it can take a while to connect to this part of us, especially if someone is very much living in their head, and that was the case for me in the beginning. It was very hard for me to connect with my feelings. Another way is to, and these are things that I speak about in the book, a way for you to connect how you feel is to look at old pictures of when you were a child, or to listen to relaxing music, or to watch a sad film, and that can allow you then to unlock your feelings and to get in touch with yourself, of course, in addition to working through trauma. So that can help. And then there's lots of oh, here we go, someone from California. Nice. Been there myself. I've been to Palm Springs, or Palm Desert as my mother calls it. I'm sure it's Palm Springs, but perhaps it's both. Very much enjoyed going there. And I know someone else who's also been to Palm Springs. I went there for a holiday, but they were there for work. So, and that was a family holiday when I went to Palm Springs, and I very much enjoyed going to Universal Studios as a kid. some of my fondest memories are actually going to Disneyland and Universal and Epcot. Very fond memories there. Sydney, yeah, that's a cool place. Sydney. So as I was saying, so yeah, and another thing as well, when it comes down to connecting to our inner child, there's lots of music, and whether it's hypnotherapy or kind of a meditation or visualization type audio on YouTube or wherever. This again is another way for us to drop into, because when it comes to connecting to our inner child, it's pretty much like we're connecting to our unconscious mind. We're going into a different state of consciousness. And when we go into that state, and this is why it can lead to such massive breakthroughs, because we are connecting to a deeper part of us. We're not just playing around with our mind, rearranging the furniture in our mind. We're going to a deeper level. And as I say on the course, let's find the link to the course here. When it comes to what I say on the course is that after someone has had an inner child session, they can end up feeling a bit tired or elated. And if they feel elated just after, they can end up feeling tired. They can have a boost and then go down. And this is because something else can come up. And it can be very easy to think, oh, well, this isn't working. It's just like, I feel good, then it's gone. And there can be a feeling of this isn't working. We can even feel a bit helpless, but it doesn't mean it's not working. It can just be a sign of another layer's come up. And what I say in the inner child course is that just like if someone's been on a retreat or they've had a therapy session, they might not want to arrange anything for after because they might not be in a good way. We can feel a bit ungrounded and we can need time to settle ourselves down. And so making sure that the ground is clear and there's no plans in place can then allow us to reground. And spending time in nature or just in the country, if that's possible, can then allow us to reconnect and to integrate the work that has been done. Because although it's just doing work by ourselves, this can be profound work. Because when it came to the inner child work that I was doing, I kind of put that to one side for a while after I wrote the original book. I think it's Inner Child is Your Inner Child Controlling Your Life. After I did this, wrote this book, I forgot about it, and then I got in touch with an old mentor of mine that worked with my father when he was unwell. He had bone cancer at the time, and I thought working with this healer, Errol Campbell, might help him. I mean, my dad wasn't on the path or really open to this stuff, but when his mother had, I think she was unwell, she worked with a faith healer, so he was open to this kind of stuff. And he ended up, I found him someone who I worked with, and he had a number of sessions, and although it didn't necessarily heal my father, it did take away a lot of the pain he was in when he was unwell. And so I wrote an article about that, and I shared it online, and then I ended up sharing this article with one of my mentors and the healer my father worked with, and he ended up getting in touch with me and said, let's chat over Skype. And it was very much a blessing because I wasn't expecting anything from it. I was just sharing something, a time in my life, and we ended up doing a number of live video calls about the inner child, and that was a very enjoyable experience. and he was speaking about the inner child, and I ended up getting back into it again and realizing how important it is. And I often do inner child work myself and dialogue with my inner child and cry out pain and things like that. And it was one thing that allowed me to let go of a lot of grief, because I had a lot of grief, a lot of pain in my chest after a lot of losses, a lot of unmet childhood needs, and the loss of my father, and breakups and things like that. And I had a lot of loss, a lot of grief that built up, and I would often find it hard to breathe. And I would go running, of course, because the running would really get everything moving within me. And before I would be fine to run, and then I was like, I can't breathe towards the end, and I couldn't understand it, because it wasn't that I hadn't been doing any exercise for years and I was suddenly out of shape. So I came to see it's because I was carrying all this trapped grief, and that was another book I wrote, Trapped Grief. And then through working through a lot of grief, then over time I was able to run again without all this pressure, all this tension within me, and to enjoy running because I love to go for a run. And there's still grief for me to work through, but fortunately it's not like it was. So there's many benefits to doing inner child work, and I would definitely recommend inner child work if you are got emotional challenges and you can see that your life is not running smoothly and you've got blockages there. So if you have any questions for me about anything on the other side, please drop them in the box, and if I can, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. I know over here it's getting a bit late, just past 11 o'clock. So perhaps if you are in the UK, perhaps you've had enough for the night, the day, and you're ready to go to bed. But if not, please send a question or some feedback over. But in the meantime, just while I'm waiting, or perhaps if there's no more questions, if you do need assistance at this time, I offer a number of different services, from normal consultations, where I will offer my guidance and advice on how to move through different challenges and what you can do based on the experiences I've had and the people I've worked with over the years. So whether it's relates to the inner child or trapped grief or the fear of abandonment or trauma or abuse or neglect or boundaries, or whether it relates to a breakup or purpose and meaning or the general healing journey. These are all things that I specialize in. And there's also a service I offer on book writing guidance, where I won't tell you what to write, but I can help you to take the first step and to see your dream go from your vision go from a dream to a reality. I've put together a number of books now, so I know how to get a book from my mind down onto paper or onto Word, so I can definitely help you with that. And also inner child guidance, I can help you with to heal your inner child and to give you guidance there. And other than that, there is, of course, all the books I've written, the courses as well on Udemy. And I think I've got a book for pretty much, and not every issue, but I've covered so many now with the fear of abandonment, toxic shame, trapped grief, inner child, self-awareness, purpose, how to get over a breakup, how to deal with anxiety, and again, the new book, how to develop self-love and self-worth. So lots of different topics there. So if there's anything that I can do to assist you, please get in touch. And if you're not sure about taking the next step, also offer free 15-minute consultations to see if we are a good match as well. So no pressure there. So please let me know if there's anything I can do. And I think that's probably about it for tonight. If there's anything left to say, speak now or forever hold your peace, as they say. Okay, well, now I'm going to sign off, but thank you for joining me today, or this afternoon, this morning. And I will probably go live again at the end of next week. So I hope to see you then, and have a great weekend, and I'll speak to you soon. And if there's anything I can do, any questions you have, please get in touch. And it would be great to hear from you. Until then, goodbye.